Early Breakfast with Jacob Moshokoa.
In for Africa Melane.
So we look at this now. The VUSA Rugby and Learning Academy is using rugby as an entry point to support young people in Langa, both on and off the field. And this weekend, its under 13 learners will swap their rugby boots for business ideas as they put a year of entrepreneurship lessons to the test. We're joined on the line by Nikki Matthews, who's the Chief Operating Officer of the VUSA or VUSA Rugby and Learning Academy. Good morning to you, Nikki, and welcome to Early Breakfast.
Good morning, Jacob. Thank you very much for having me.
Nikki, why is it important to introduce children to sport from a very young age?
Yeah, Jacob, sport obviously has all the physical benefits, the gross motor skills and the fitness and those sorts of things, but it goes a lot further. For young kids, they're learning a lot of important life skills. They're learning teamwork and discipline and respect, and, when the referee blows his whistle, you have to listen. There's time management. There's all those things that they'll take into the workplace and into high school with them. So yeah, we think sport is really, really important for all children. And then in South Africa especially, we've got a lot of communities where there's no safe structured spaces for kids to go after school. So, sports really gives them that space to find their people and their family and their teams. And, gangs are very successful at recruiting kids because they're looking for that belonging, and that's something that sport really does, team sport really does get kids.
And then how would we make physical activity and sport attractive to young people again? Because I think any parent or any guardian out there is always worried about too much screen time for these youngsters.
Yeah, in Langa, screen time isn't a huge issue for us, but for all kids, you need to make it enjoyable, you need to make it accessible, and you need to make it social. If you make it another obligation that kids have to participate in, or if it's just for the top talented kids, they lose interest. But if they feel like they're part of what's happening and, they want to engage. Kids are competitive by nature, so they, obviously love the competitive side of things. And then, you need the good coaches. Our coaches a lot of them reside in the community with the kids, so they know the kids, they know what the issues are surrounding them, and they know, where they're starting and where they're ending. So they're working with kids and developing them from where they're at. So they're not just looking for the next Springbok, they're looking to grow the whole child, from entry point to exit point. So having coaches who are believing of the child, kids know that. They know when someone doesn't know their name and doesn't know that they're there, that they maybe don't belong. So being very inclusive in the sporting space, I think, is important for kids to stay engaged and to want to be there.
Let's concentrate a little more about what VUSA does and the programs on offer. I know rugby is, of course, the heart of VUSA, but in general, how does VUSA actually work, and how do you get people involved with VUSA?
Yeah, most definitely. Rugby is the draw card. So rugby is a massive sport in the Langa community. I think the Busy Bees is the oldest black rugby club in South Africa. I stand to be corrected. But so it's a community that really loves rugby, and that's the draw card for our program. But, even if our kids were all the next Springbok team, rugby isn't a very long professional career. And so our coaches really try and, impart on the kids that the education side of things is as important as the sports side of things. So every child who comes into our program, into our after-school program, is tested, and we run programs. English is a massive issue at the Langa schools because the kids learn in mother tongue until grade 3. At grade 4, they suddenly have to learn in English, and so your foundational learning is already behind because the kids are learning in the language they don't understand. So we introduce a lot of English programs Maths is another one that we really focus on, because if you lose maths early on, it's very difficult to catch up. Coding, screen time isn't a huge issue for our children because they don't have access to screens. The computer labs in schools can't hold computers because they get stolen, or they don't have the staff and resources to run those systems. So we introduce all the laptop programs, the coding programs and that sort of stuff. And then rugby isn't for everybody. We've got a few kids who really do require that safe space in the afternoon, but they just don't want to be on the rugby field. So we've introduced art and a choir program as well for those children. And then at the end of every day, our children each get a hot meal, because we know a lot of the families really struggle to put food on the table, especially at the end of the month. We look at our attendance registers, and towards the end of the month numbers go up just because the kids really need that meal. So, for any child who attends our program in the afternoon, that hot meal is on the table. And then, we try and really create a holistic learning space for the kids and a safe space for the kids. So we have a social worker, who's available to all the VUSA families. On weekends where there's no competitive rugby matches, we'll take them out for outings. So we really are trying to create a holistic space with excellent learning facilities, and, sport is the draw card to all of that. So, yeah.
We're chatting
in the mornings.
Sorry. We are on the line with Nikki Matthews. She's the Chief Operating Officer of the VUSA Rugby and Learning Academy. Now, Nikki, I think it's important to talk about what's taking place on Saturday. Under 13 learners swapping their rugby boots for business ideas as they put a year of entrepreneurship lessons to the test. How can people get involved with what will be taking place on Saturday?
Look, we'd love people to attend this. It's our derby rugby match. So we play against the Wet Ups community, and the kids, as you say, have been working all year. They work with the CapeTalk marketing and finance teams. They've done all the little business modules, identified their target markets, done all the financial costings and stuff, and now this is where they set up their markets for the rugby day. So having people there for them to connect with and communicate with, and not even necessarily to purchase their products, but to get feedback and for them to practice their selling skills and to really showcase what they've worked on is very special for them. They start the morning very shy and unsure how to engage, and by 11, 12 o'clock, they're ready to take on the entrepreneurial world and start businesses every day. So it's we just would love to get people down there and connecting with the kids and finding out about their businesses and letting them speak to their businesses. And if you can, obviously support their little businesses, because they do get to keep the profits that they make on Saturday. ShopRite's invested in all the businesses, all the products that they sell. Most of them come from ShopRite, and their profit then is returned to them in a ShopRite voucher, so that they give back to the company that's invested in them. But it's a special day, and our program, the big shortfall of our program is that we do, because of funding restrictions, we end it at 13. And so whilst we try and create opportunities for our kids when they leave the program, we just want them to know not to wait for opportunities. They have the skills and the ability to make their own opportunities. So that's kind of what this day is about, and why we run this program. It combines all their maths and their English and all the stuff that they've learned over the few years they've had with us. It's just ready for their exit into the big world of high school, and hopefully beyond.
All right, we'll leave it there. Nikki Matthews, the Chief Operating Officer at the VUSA Rugby and Learning Academy. They're basically having an entrepreneurial day tomorrow. For any more details, you're looking at VUSARugbyAcademy.com. Donations are always welcome, and you heard from her. They do always have to cap the age gap to 13 years old, and that's because of the minimal funding that they do have. So see how you can help. If you do have time, head on out there. The VUSA Rugby Academy out in Langa. All the details on VUSARugbyAcademy.com. Her name, of course, is Nikki Matthews. This is Early Breakfast.